Good evening and welcome to today's grassroots webinar, Billions More for Billionaires, Barely Pennies for People, and More Pollution for the Planet. What's next for our movement? I'm Kimberly Wills, Director of Strategic Partnerships for the Climate Action Campaign, a coalition of environmental justice, and health organizations representing over 15 million members across the country, fighting for strong federal action on climate. Thank you to our partners for putting on this program tonight, and thank you to you, our audience, for doing your part to turn public anger into pressure, organizing, and accountability. Congress, led by Donald Trump and his Polluters First agenda, just passed one of the most destructive environmental and economic bills in history, slashing clean energy investments, climate protections, along with historically cruel cuts to Medicaid to pay for tax breaks for the ultra wealthy. We have an excellent lineup of speakers discussing how we can fight back. I'm pleased to welcome our first three speakers, Senator Brian Schatz of Hawaii, Senator Brian Schatz of Hawaii, Congressman Lloyd Doggett of Texas's 37th District, and Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts, all of whom fight for a healthy climate and a fair, just, and equitable country for all. They have also been among the strongest voices calling out the Trump administration's callous, illegal, or harmful actions, and Republicans in Congress for turning their backs on the American people and bending the knee to billionaires and big oil. Thank you all for joining us, and let's kick things off with Senator Schatz.
Thank you so much for doing this, and thank you to everybody for being on this Zoom and for everything you've done to fight for climate action. I'm here just to say a couple of things. First of all, thank you. This has been a tough and hard fight, and I take some satisfaction in understanding and knowing, at least from my standpoint, but also from the standpoint of the grassroots, everybody fought as hard as we could. There are some times when you lose and you think, wow, what could I have done differently? What could we have done differently? I don't think this one we're going to look back with regret in terms of how we executed our strategy, how hard we fought, how clear we were, how cooperative we were, how organized we were. And so I want you to take some solace in the fact that you left it all out there and you fought like hell against this terrible piece of legislation. A couple of other thoughts. Our job now is to make sure that this bill is the most unpopular piece of legislation passed in generations. Now, we've got a really good head start because this thing is already really in the toilet. But the Republicans have not started to communicate about this bill yet. And so they do have an opportunity to at least consolidate their base behind this bill and make it slightly less unpopular. But remember, everything that people feel about this bill is sort of pre-outcome. They are anticipating what this bill will do. Once electricity bills go up, once people lose their food assistance, once rural hospitals shut down, this bill will be even more unpopular. And so we have a tendency, I think, in the progressive movement to move on to the next thing. And I think what we need to do is spend the next 18 months talking about how this is raising people's prices for food, for electricity, and for healthcare, and all to provide tax cuts for the wealthiest people who have ever walked the planet. Let's not make it complicated. Let's not tear our hair out. Let's go turn this terrible moment into an opportunity for us to regain power and regain the policy making initiative. One final thing, and I have devoted all of my professional life to climate action, and I know a lot of you have devoted your adult lives to climate action. So I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This was a terrible loss. This really was a terrible loss. But I think of the civil rights movement, and I think of the people who have fought before us against even tougher odds and have faced physical harm and have faced their communities being endangered. And they had some really bad setbacks over a period of years. And then they'd have a win, and then they'd have a setback, and then they'd have a win, and then they'd have a setback. And so I know we're going to win. I don't know when, but I know we're going to win as long as we stay in there. So, feel your feelings, as they say. I certainly had a weekend where I had to convalesce a little, put the AirPods on, go on a long walk, figure it all out. Give yourself enough time to be bummed and pissed and all the rest of it, and then turn that into motivation to kick these people's ass We can do it. We're going to win. I don't know how quickly, but we're going to win and we're going to win together. So thank you for everything that you all do. And we've still got a long way to go and we're going to do it together. Thank you very much.
Senator Doggett, you're up.
Thanks very much. Lloyd Doggett here from deep in the heart of Texas. Your participation here is exactly what we need across our country. There are not any superheroes that are coming to save us. Each of us has to don our own cape. I think it's time to refuse to accept defeat, to rededicate ourselves to this ongoing struggle, and recognize that we will not remain the land of the free unless we are indeed the home of the brave at this difficult time. I think that our work is backed by more and more court orders, by our recurrent growing protest, and ultimately by the electoral process. We've got to use all of these tools. We've all watched in the last few days the horror of the Central Texas floods, inflicting untold pain on so many families, as perhaps as many as 250 or 300 lives will eventually be reported lost. Here in Texas, the summers seem to range now from late April to early November. Extreme weather events like these floods and the wildfires and the hurricanes and the tornadoes and other intensified weather events, all because we have a rapidly warming planet. My daughter, Dr. Lisa Doggett, just wrote an article for Public Health Watch with our high school granddaughter, Clara, about the strain that climate change is imposing on mental health. As they put it in their article, climate change, pervasive and overwhelming, is perhaps the most existential of Gen Z's fears. The stress is damaging development, it's weakening immune systems, it's increasing the risk of addiction and chronic illness, and of course, wildfires pollute our lungs and microplastics damage our organs, and contaminated water is a risk for so many ailments. Republicans, of course, have repealed in this horrible bill our modest progress from the last session, and they are eliminating access to a family physician for 17 million Americans. Even here in a very prosperous Austin, half of the children seen at the local hospital are reliant on Medicaid. They're reliant to get access, whether it's to an EpiPen or a well check or any kind of assistance. I think that the slightly more advantaged families that will be affected are with those relying on the Affordable Care Act coverage. In only 3 months, those who are seeking health insurance through the Obamacare marketplaces will see their premiums rise by an average of 75%, meaning many will be priced out. That's a time to talk about those price spikes from the president who said he would bring prices down drastically. The way forward is that each citizen can help us stop this wrongdoing. I'm asked by constituents, what can I do? Well, my answer is we've got to convince more of our families and our neighbors who may not have agreed with us on everything in the past of the danger of this horrible bill and the danger of one-man authoritarian rule. It's very real. I encourage my constituents to become their own news networks, on every type of social media, to spread the truth, because we have so many lies to combat, and we will be bombarded with one ad after another paid for by the fossil fuel industry. Let's join the local protests that help educate our neighbors about Trump's wrongs and how these provisions in the bill are making life more difficult for everyone. Let's help plan ways that we can, as my late friend John Lewis said, we are looking for good trouble, and always relying on nonviolence and seeking protests that bring people to our cause, not drive them away. I think we need to urge every group of which we're a member to publicly oppose Trump's wrongdoing. I've been impressed with the extent of the intimidation he has had over business and professional groups and even some nonprofits. We've got to support the groups that are fighting back, like those who organize this call. And of course, the most effective check on Trump is through the electoral process. With just 3 new members of the House, we would have the power to issue subpoenas, exercise more control over appropriations, set the legislative agenda. It is essential that we involve more Americans, not just in voting, but Americans who are willing to get out and get engaged and help us get the huge turnout we need to throw the rascals out. Finally, we've got to work to keep hope alive. Your courage will breed courage in other people. Despite our very narrow defeat on this far reaching, damaging legislation, this is no time for hopelessness. We have to be the light against Trump's darkness. Let's never give up and never give in. Thank you.
Senator Markey, you're on.
Great, thank you. Thanks for organizing this SEIU climate action campaign, carrying across generations, League of Conservation Voters, Sunrise, Move On, Sierra Club, Fossil Free Media, all for inviting me here, Lloyd here, Brian here, and all of you who are joining us tonight. Thank you for being here, because today we're going to start to learn how to fight this big bad bill. We're going to be out there every single day. And you're here because you know what I do, that Republicans passed a bill that's bad for people, bad for our planet. It's a giveaway to billionaires that will make people sicker, hungrier, poorer. Republicans knew this and they voted yes anyway. Their big bad bill makes the biggest cuts to healthcare in United States history. They cut over $1 trillion in healthcare. Medicaid, cut. Medicare, cut. The Affordable Care Act effectively repealed. 17 million people could lose their health insurance. More hospitals will be taking more uninsured patients, which means they lose money to pay workers to care for patients. Nursing homes might close or take fewer patients, leaving seniors sitting in hospitals waiting longer for somewhere to go. Community health centers might have to cut services, leaving sick people to get even sicker before receiving care. Hospitals, in turn, will need to provide more services with less funding. This will force them to look at cutting back services on those who need it the most, or closing altogether. They will need to make sacrifices. Some will feel forced to invite in insidious corporate funders to keep their doors open. In fact, I put out a list of 338 rural hospitals across the country that are most vulnerable to closure or cutting services because of Republican healthcare cuts. And there are many, many more rural hospitals, critical access hospitals, serving patients on Medicaid, nursing homes, and community health centers that will face greater financial stress because of these cuts. And as the rural systems go under, it's going to start to flood their urban systems as well. And that's going to put pressure on them because they are also going to be suffering from Medicaid cuts with extra services that they're going to be called upon to, in fact, provide, which is going to put pressure on those hospitals to exist. And as people get sick, our planet will get polluted because this bill is the most destructive climate bill ever passed by Congress. Doesn't just take a red pen to climate investments, it takes a blowtorch. The Republicans got more than $500 billion in clean energy and climate investments while shoveling billions more to big oil's big bank accounts. Republicans chose to kill hundreds of thousands and ultimately millions of clean energy jobs, repeal the clean energy tax credits that are powering our domestic manufacturing comeback, and hike household energy bills even further. Every clean megawatt this big ugly bill wipes off the grid takes money out of your pocket and puts dirty air in your lungs. So time and time again, we see the rich get richer, while the sick get sicker, and that is unacceptable. But the fight is not over. Some of these cuts don't take effect until 2026, 2027, even 2028. And raising your voices will work because Republicans know their bill is deeply unpopular, that they're going to absolutely get punished at the polls next year because they know they made a mistake. It is why they all tried to walk back from healthcare cuts before ultimately voting yes. Your collective power is strong. It is so strong that Donald Trump and Republicans want to suppress dissent and silence your voices. Now is not the time to stop. It isn't the time to agonize. We have to organize. We have to push back on Republicans to reverse these cuts. We have to make clear that every day these healthcare cuts stay in place is another day. They are putting your work, your lives, your families at risk. So tell your stories, raise your voices, make clear that every elected official of every party, from city halls to Capitol Hill, must push back against this billionaire-backed authoritarian president and his Republican lackeys, his MAGA lackeys. And we're going to beat them, and we're going to beat them badly next year. And once we fight off these cuts, we turn our attention to more. We will stop selling out people for billionaire tax breaks. We will give everyone the opportunity to get an education and good paying union jobs. We will guarantee that every person can afford to feed themselves and their families. We will make sure every person has a healthy planet to live on. We will fight for Medicare for all and give every American access to affordable, accessible health care. And so last week was a bad week. That vote last Tuesday is historically bad. When the president signed that bill, it is an historic blemish on our country's history. But 250 years ago in Massachusetts, Lexington and Concord, Minutemen and Minutewomen, they started to rise up against the most powerful army in the world, the British Army. Did they get knocked down? Yeah. But did they get back up again and fight and win? Yes, they did. The abolitionists, did they get knocked down? Yes, they did, but they got back up and they fought and they won. And the same thing was true for the civil rights workers. Were they knocked down? Yes. Were they knocked out? No. They got up. And because of their courage, we won. We had civil rights laws put on the books. The same-sex marriage movement. Were they knocked down? Yes. Were they knocked out? No. They got back up, they fought, and they won. That's where we are again, right now. We have to get up. We were knocked down. We're not knocked out. We have a chance here to continue to fight, to make sure that we create a world in which everyone is given the dignity of healthcare, the promise of financial security, a fair and just future, a future where the planet is not running a fever, and that the Republican Party has walked away from it, but the Democratic Party returns to this fight for wind and solar and all electric vehicles and jobs by the millions domestically here in our country. So I can't thank all of you enough for everything that you're doing and that you're going to do, because the fight has just begun. Thank you all so much for everything that you're going to do.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you all for your leadership. Now, I am pleased to welcome our next three speakers. Bill McKibben is a legendary climate activist whose grassroots organizing has shaped the global climate movement for over 3 decades. As the founder of 350.org and Third Act, he has mobilized millions of people worldwide to demand action on climate change. Nicole Jorwick is the Chief Program Officer for Caring Across Generations. She is a lifelong Medicaid advocate and a family caregiver. Our final speaker brings the perspective of workers. James Halsey is the international rep for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, 9th District. Now, Bill, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you very much. And we've heard great and fiery testimony. I'm going to talk for just a minute about why, bad as this is, hard as a blow we took to the chin, why I think we're going to get up off the canvas in short order and get things done. The thing I'm going to talk about is energy. And I want to tell you that though we made a big mistake in the US last week, that's not what's happening around the world. Around the world, there is a surge of clean energy. We're producing a third more energy from the sun, 30% more this summer than last summer. Around the world right now, we put up a gigawatt's worth of solar panels, that's the equivalent of a nuclear power plant or a coal-fired power plant, we put that up every 12 hours. In fact, China had such a boom in solar last month that they were putting up a nuclear power plant's worth of solar panels every 8 hours in China alone, 3 a day. In California, we now have enough solar panels and batteries that the state, the fourth largest economy in the world, is using 40% less natural gas to generate electricity than it did 2 years ago, which should tell you why the fossil fuel industry is freaking out and pouring money into the coffers of the administration. You'll recall that Donald Trump told them in his campaigning that if they gave him $1 billion, he'd give them anything they wanted. They gave him about $500 million, and that turned out to be enough because they're getting every favor they asked for. But it's because they know that they are in a desperate place. We now live on a planet where the cheapest way to make electricity is to point a sheet of glass at the sun. That changes everything. And it's why, as we're talking about rallying now and making the cry again, many of us are getting together for Sunday on September 21st, the fall equinox. It's going to be one of the important events on the resistance calendar this year because this is a huge opportunity to, well, to really change the country, to change the country in profound ways. Yep, the money's gone from Washington for the moment, but there are enormous things we can still do. Our state and local governments are capable of changing permitting and other things that will allow us to proceed much, much more quickly with what we're with the goal of getting solar up every place we can. Sunday is going to be a big celebration. Think Earth Day 1970. I may be the only person old enough here to remember the first Earth Day in 1970, but it was a remarkable day. And on that day, enough people poured into the streets that within 18 months, a corrupt Republican administration, Richard Nixon's, had given us the EPA, the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, all the other statutes that we still depend on that are now being gutted. We need to be back out there. There will be on that day EV parades. There'll be solar powered concerts. There will be protests out in front of legislatures and city halls demanding action. They'll be the beginnings of the mobilization for the work that we need to do in 2026. So join us. Go to sunday.earth, sunday.earth, and figure out how you can do something in your local community, because there's going to be thousands of events across America that day. It's a remarkable prospect to think that we're now capable of powering our world with energy from heaven instead of hell, that we're capable of powering our world with energy that can't be hoarded and that no one will ever fight a war over. We have a real possibility for real and rapid progress, and we need to seize it now because climate change gives us very little margin. This is our moment. Thanks to everybody for everything they're doing.
Thanks so much. Glad to be here with everyone, and I would echo what Senator Schatz said, because I know that those of us that have been in the thick of the Medicaid fight, just like the climate fight and so many other of our interconnected and interdependent movements, are reeling still from what was done in Washington, D.C. last week. I have been engaged in the fight for Medicaid the entirety of my career, and I really thought there was no way, because when you have a narrative of stripping healthcare, stripping climate protection, stripping long-term care from millions of people to pay for tax cuts, I thought the narrative couldn't have been any stronger, but I also agree we left it all on the field. The disability community, aging communities, labor, healthcare communities all came together, did everything that we should have done because of the importance of the Medicaid program. Medicaid serves 80 million people. That's 11 million people with disabilities, 7.2 million older Americans, half of all children with special health needs from chronic illness to disability, 40% of new parents and their newborns. That's what was at stake, and that was what the members of Congress who voted to gut the program by $1 trillion decided was not as important as those tax cuts. Something that carrying across generations, our movement is a movement of family caregivers, people with disabilities and aging adults, and care workers to build a care movement that reflects the needs of our community. And the reality is that Medicaid was far from a perfect program, but it is also the only program for so many things, including long-term care. Medicaid, not Medicare, is what covers the vast majority of it. And so, as Senator Markey laid out, we're very worried about all of the things that will be coming. And even though they have delayed some of the start dates, we know that the pain is going to be real and it's already starting. Just last week, a community health center in Nebraska announced that they're closing. We're going to see nursing homes closing. We're going to see disability service providers closing just because states are going to have to anticipate these massive cuts. So our job as Medicaid advocates is to make every single member who voted for these cuts feel it and choke on it every day. Excuse my language, but that's what we need to be doing because that's what we have to do. And there's going to be a lot of opportunities. This month is the 60th anniversary of Medicaid and Medicare. We at Caring Across Generations and a lot of our partners are coming together for a 60-hour Medicaid vigil where we'll be having actions and storytelling and a faith-based prayer vigil and all the things to start the accountability now for the realities of what Medicaid beneficiaries are going to face. That will be from 9 p.m. on July 23rd until 9 a.m. on July 26th. And the big thing to make sure that everyone's paying attention to, and obviously we want everyone participating in the vigil in DC, but also on July 26th, along with our partners at SEIU and Move On and Community Change and Moms Rising and a lot of other groups, we are doing the Families First Day of Action on July 26th in the afternoon. If you go to familiesfirstnow.org, you'll find there will be events all over the country. These are the same set of groups that were behind No Kings and Hands Off. And we are centering it around the idea of Families First, to Representative Doggett's point, to make sure that everybody feels a space in the movement. That what we're actually talking about are climate-friendly policies for families. Is a Medicaid system that actually covers everybody. And we're talking about SNAP and immigration and all of the issues that impact our families all over this country. And so that's going to be a really important day. Again, that's familyfirstnow.org, familiesfirstnow.org. That's going to be July, August are all about accountability. And I agree with what Senator Schatz said, that really what we have to do every time that a nursing home closes in a community, there needs to be cameras and a news crew out about why that happened and who voted for it. Or if we don't do it, nobody is going to do it. And I'm proud to be in this fight with all of you, and I will turn it over to James.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is James Halsey. I'm here on behalf of the 860,000 members of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. Before this bill passed, renewable energy projects were among the IBW's largest areas of construction job growth. But now, despite this country's growing demand for electricity and need to modernize our electrical grid, there's only one thing that will increase: our power bill. My adopted hometown is Las Vegas, and today I represent thousands of IBW members in Nevada and Southern California. And today you can still drive past the casino lights into the desert and see the future of renewable power and the ingenuity of technology. In the past 20 years, we have seen nearly 3 gigabytes of solar installed in the Nevada desert, enough to power millions of homes and create thousands of good-paying IBEW jobs. In fact, my Las Vegas brothers and sisters recently finished the 690 megawatt Gemini solar project, one of the largest solar facilities in the world. This project also includes 380 megawatts of battery storage. Seeing solar's growth potential with the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act in 2022, the IBW increased the size of our apprenticeship training centers. We anticipated a lot of opportunities for men and women to get in the electrical construction field. Not anymore. All the additional solar projects in planning stages are at risk or have been canceled already. And it isn't just because the tax credits have been revoked. The price of solar panels due to the U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods has increased anywhere from 20 to 130%, depending on the day. No project can pencil out with that uncertainty. All of this is going to hit our local communities and the members I represent very hard. Less jobs, less money, less opportunities to move into the middle class. Abundant sunshine and a wide open landscape used to add up to projects that benefited workers, developers, and the environment. Not anymore. As we all know, the opposition to this bill was not enough to dissuade Congress from gifting to so few at the cost of so many. So in the end, the IBW members are among the many, and we will be paying the price for this bill far into the future. All I can say is 2026 can't come soon enough. Thank you.
Hope everyone listening is energized and ready to take action. We have the momentum if we organize. We know that most Americans support clean energy and oppose what Republicans have done. Republicans in Congress and the administration may be turning their backs on American workers, consumers, and families, but the rest of us aren't. So let's all speak up and take action. The link that you see on the screen, actonclimate.now/what's next, directs to a page with multiple actions. If you have just 1 minute, join us in showing strength in numbers by posting on social media. We created informational graphics that illustrate just some of the impacts that this bill will have on our jobs, health, and climate. You can find sample posts to share these images and display a united front at the link on your screen. If you have 3 minutes, write a letter to your member of Congress to tell them how you feel about the big, ugly bill. If you have an afternoon, join a rally in person. We've mentioned a couple of them on the call today. On Saturday, July 26th, Americans in every corner of the country will come together in peaceful marches, rallies, and actions to say our families come first, not billionaires, not authoritarians, and not corrupt politicians. Then on September 21st, join Sunday, a day of action celebrating solar and wind power and the movement to leave fossil fuels behind. Of course, building power and a political movement takes more than a minute, more than an afternoon. Our organizations do this work every day, so please stay in touch with us. We have a survey that you can fill out to tell us more about the issues that you're most passionate about and the types of activities that you'd like to join. So please follow the link that you see on the screen, and you can access all of these materials and opportunities. That concludes our program for this evening. Thank you for joining us and for taking action to make this moment matter. Good night.